Okay, give me just a second. Okay, we are ready on YouTube. Let me close this. Okay, we are live. Hey, Vice Chair, you can start.
Welcome to a special meeting of the Travel Council Advisory Board. Jenny was unable at the last minute to conduct due to Wi-Fi Zoom issues and asked if I would be willing to step in. So I beg your forgiveness in advance and patience so that we can do this properly with Robert's Rules of Order. Would just ask to go around, let's see, I think today is the 16th of August. We're starting at 2:05. If we could just go around the room and make brief introductions for the minutes. I'm Lori McFarland, Vice Chair, representing High Point Hummer ATV and County as a whole.
I'm Lacey Shumway, the Executive Director of the Moab Chamber, a board member.
Robert Riberia, the Assistant Marketing Director for the Moab Travel Council.
Vegan Metzner, Moab to Monument Valley Film Commissioner.
Oh, Quinn Hall. Quinn Hall, I work in the county admin office.
Mary McGann, County Commissioner.
Melissa Stocks, Economic Development.
Rebecca,
Rebecca Monso, Sales Manager of Hampton Inn and Homewood Suites in Moab, Board Member.
and Sharon, do you have a second?
Sharon Kinsley, board member with the Moab Area Travel, or with the Moab Information Center.
Take care.
And Brian Hunnings?
Ryan Hunnings, GM of Red Cliffs Lodge and board member.
I don't see Alex. Can you hear us, Alex?
I don't think so, Alex is on the meeting.
He might jump in. He had confirmed just a few minutes ago. Do we have a quorum? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You didn't count me, right?
5 voting members?
I can't.
5 out of 7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's good.
We're good.
We're good.
Good, then we've got a quorum. We can continue. I know that at our meeting about a week ago, we had discussed that this is possibly an opportunity to look at recommendations for our county commission, and there was some desire to do some discussion. I believe that we need a motion to submit a letter on behalf of the Travel Council Advisory Board. If anybody wants to make the motion, and we would need a second, and then we can
No,
discuss.
we need to have the letter to look at.
We haven't composed it, where this is our special session to just discuss items that we might like to include. Because we weren't able to put those in our previous agenda because it wasn't published at a state level. So we're trying to do everything by the rules, and
So I would discuss.
Yeah, we can
what-
discuss
what-
the letter,
what you
before the
want
letter.
to be in the letter, because
Awesome.
to make a motion on a letter that isn't available to look at is premature.
Thank you. Thank you.
You
Yeah,
wanted to.
to make a motion to actually pass it, then you would want the letter that is going. We make a recommendation to forward this letter to the county commission. So
Okay.
you want that letter to be completely penciled out. So for the purposes of this meeting, the discussion is totally fine. Discuss what you want to go in the letter. And then when is the next meeting?
And you
Go ahead.
You can make a motion to have these items in the letter and then compose the letter and then vote on the letter, but you couldn't vote on a letter that wasn't composed.
Thank you very much. We also, I'm sure everybody has ideas about things. We have some published stuff to share. We'll figure out how to put it out, those for folks that are on Zoom. From my understanding, because this is a special meeting, citizens are not part of those who are eligible to contribute their comments, but board members are. And so I just want to just clarify that up front, just in case I need to be corrected. So yeah, I want to just pass out just some ideas. And we'll figure out how to put this up on the camera.
I can do it. Did you get one? Okay, I thought I knew one. Yeah, you did. I think you got enough. One, two, three, four. That has someone that's of that.
The latest.
Oh, thank you. So. Does anybody? Tell me what I need to know. I would love to just get started with some thoughts and ideas and start the discussion. We good
Sure, who's taking minutes?
procedurally? I thought the minutes were taken by the
It's
recorder.
Sky. Well, it's on live, so
Okay.
it's gonna.
Okay.
It's testing. I believe that there are a lot of people that have been in Grant County long enough to have a brief understanding of TRT, TRCCA, and how that's come about. Historically, I remember back in 2002, when the Olympics were coming, previous to that, year 2000, 2001, trying to make alliances with hotel and activities, because Moab wasn't, at that time, it was obviously prior to social media and wasn't really on the map. So we were doing things the old fashioned way and meeting together and having community meeting groups and trying really hard to find a way that we might be able to attract a few visitors to Moab that maybe would have been spilling over from the Olympics. That's when I started getting involved. That's my history with this. We laughed after the Olympics were over and realized that in spite of the fact that we had the most spectacular video footage of helicopters flying over Delicate Arch and getting phenomenal footage, there was very little, people stayed in Salt Lake. They did not come to Moab, the 4-hour drive. It was a great idea, but it was a little premature. But after they started seeing video footage of where is that, what is that, I want to see that. I think that was, in my memory, one of the first times that Moab sort of started getting out on the map. That TRT revenue at that time was not as significant as it is now. Throughout the course of history, based on what Utah allows, the council commission has the ability to elect how much TRT revenue we're allowed to. Oh, hi, Alex.
Hello.
We're
Sorry, I'm-
allowed to go ahead.
Sorry, I'm late.
You're good. Can we introduce Alex?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex. Tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Alex Borshevsky, board member.
Welcome. Anyway, so the county sort of gets to decide the percentages of revenue that are going to be collected within state statute. My feeling is that we have an opportunity at this point to look at those revenue streams that are coming in and how we're structuring our ability to sustainably attract guests and share what kind of appetite the community has for different types of services that are allowed by state law within those collections of TRT and TRCCA. Because we've had the exit of a couple key administrators, it seems like this might be an opportunity to discuss and recommend possible restructuring that would save some of that precious revenue that from our last meeting, we were, it was explained that we are down 12 to 13% in sales tax, not just TRT, TRCCA, the sales tax revenue in Grant County through the end of May is down. To my business, a significant growth would be 12 to 13%. So to be down, I mean, almost unsustainable growth in corporations or companies of more than 10% annually without huge ramping up traditionally. So to be down 12 to 13% is something that I think we're all trying to be proactive about how to manage our resources well. And it's an opportunity to save some resource. The salaries that were included in the economic director and the assistant are north of $200,000. Perhaps we can reappropriate and use some of that resource better, because we have so many directors that are able to do things effectively. So we have put together, I put together like option 1, 2, 3 on a piece of paper, just to see what the appetite is for possibly reappropriating some of those resources and just recommending to the commission. Ultimately, we know that the commission is able to make those decisions, but we have an obligation to stick our heads together and come up with some recommendations. And with that, option 1, 2, and 3 with some different structures. Can you guys see what's going on with option 1?
So we have option 1, then we have option, option 3 is another disorganized. And then option 2, but we're gonna go through each option, correct?
I'm good with it. I'm just gonna throw out there the idea, if we start even at option 1, this is just hypothetical here. We have a commission administration, which, to my understanding, is Mallory and Quinn in those responsibilities. And reporting to that commission currently is a travel council director, tourism council, visitor economy, all of these terms for what has clearly become the primary industry in Moab. Economic development is currently not a position that exists, but possibly proposing that instead of having a boss over several capable bosses, maybe we have an economic community development person who's maybe somebody like a retired business owner who's been there, done that, sold their business. They're kind of bored because they're retired and they're looking for things to do. Believe it or not, as I have more birthdays, I realize that's actually a real thing. There are people who miss doing business and networking and bringing new industry and ideas. That was one thought. And then possibly underneath the travel council, possibly looking at different revenue streams. I'm looking, where does the money come from that feeds these? Currently, to my understanding, economic development has some grants that are feeding that, but the only money that would be feeding economic development at this time would be filtered out of the general fund or siphoned out of TRT. That's my understanding. I can be corrected definitely on that. I'm not an expert at this. Underneath the tourism council director, possibly we could have film and marketing, because that's all part of the visitor economy, even special events, part of the visitor economy. Under economic development, there's a possibility of active transportation and trails and responsible recreation. And it's important to have a strong administrative assistant. Currently, Sky is doing that and could possibly, coming up with a salary that comes both from TRT revenue and possibly some of those grants, so that they could share that position to keep that flow correctly. After working through a couple of these options, I actually skipped down to option 3 after sort of mashing that around and started. I'm going to skip down to 3.
You want me to go through option?
Yeah, let's go to option 3. In the last week, I started moving all my little pieces around. It seemed to me that tourism is actually the primary revenue stream, and active transportation and trails are fed directly from TRT, TRCCA, marketing, special events, and responsible recreation. That's actually all part of travel council money. Economic development is actually film. Film is a whole new industry that I feel like is exploding and is really not affected by who's visiting our town. That is a new way to bring money to the coffers that's outside of that. So
That's your option.
those are my options, my
Yeah.
two favorites. I like option 3 the best, but everybody's got ideas about these things. So now that I've
Can we show?
we can
option
show
two?
option 2, sure. Option 2, the big difference there is active transportation and trails, responsible recreation and film are all under economic development. But if you follow the money and the revenue stream in economic development does active transportation and trails and responsible recreation. The money doesn't come from economic development yet. Once we have economic development in our county that's actually producing and growing, maybe we can expand that, get some assistance in there, but we're sort of getting the cart before the horse. If we make a business plan and we're paying everybody a bunch of money to do a job that's really esoteric, super hard to source somebody that has all of those skills and talents, when we don't really, to my understanding, looking at the budget, we don't really have the revenue to support those salaries at this time.
So you like option
My
one?
favorite is option 3. Anyway, sorry to make you listen to me so long, but this is what I lay awake at night thinking about.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, wait a second. Sharon was raising her
Oh,
hand.
sorry.
Go ahead, Sharon.
I actually am leaning towards option 1 that I like. I actually think that film needs to be under tourism. There are a lot of people that come here because of film. And not just the people filming, I'm talking tourists come here because they see something in a movie and they come here. I also think that's that we have the TRT money can go to film. We have a better and flow of money with TRT. We have the money to help with film. What happens if these grants dry up and then they don't have money to fund the film commission? I don't think we need to make sure the film commission is funded and fully funded. I don't think we need to, they can't be left behind again. They can't be an afterthought. That's just my personal opinion, but we see an awful lot of people that come in the mix that are here because they saw a movie.
Awesome. Wait,
Go ahead.
did you have something?
Yes, so my question is just, so basically, actually, it's more of a clarification. All of these things that you have listed here are funded through TRT or TRCCA,
Or general
right?
fund.
Is that
General
right?
fund. Well, from my understanding, state statute allows, and I can send out an email, or Jenny can send it with the state statute, and probably everybody has read it, of what is allowed to be, what TRT and TRCCA are allowed to be used for. And to my understanding, these positions historically have been largely funded through TRT and TRCCA.
So I just want to make sure that, I mean, as our role as an advisory board is to advise on the TRT funds and not necessarily general funds. And so I just want to make sure that what we're looking at is just advising on TRT funds, right?
Love it,
And I just wanted to clarify that, I guess.
love it.
And
Yeah.
so it looks like then either way. And then my next question would be, I guess, for administration, how hard is it? If at all hard to separate TRT funds into 2 different departments? Is it? Like, does it get messy? Is it pretty clean cut and easy? Like that's,
It's been on the level of granularity you want in the split, or as you increase the resolution across different accounts, it becomes more of an overhead chore to do.
right?
But as far as splitting it, as long as you stay within statute, it's not terribly difficult.
And my understanding is if it has a 16 by it, typically that's a code that signals that TRT revenue is funding that. Is that correct?
I have to look at it. I mean, we created Fund 16 for the Economic Development Department, so I think, and that was created last year before the spring legislative session, so that probably needs to be cleaned up at this point.
Right.
So I think there's a combination of revenue in there.
But
That's a question.
no, sorry, we have to do public on this one.
And then I guess then my next question is, I'm assuming that under this community economic development, there are other responsibilities that could be in there that just aren't TRT driven, right?
Well, there's a whole bunch under economic development. They are part of EDC
Yeah.
Utah, which is the Utah Economic Development Corporation of Utah. They're part of the World Trade Organization, and they would also be working really, really closely with USU to make sure that that small business organization that we are helping
Yeah.
fund continues, and that it is coordinated between it and the where it was developed when Zachariah was the Economic Development Director prior to House Bill 416, when it was under the planning department.
Mhm.
A lot of his responsibility was making sure the funds that were available that we were missing out on because we didn't have anyone following economic development were captured, and it was through that department that the Synergy got that huge grant from the World Trade Center.
Right,
That if we had not had an economic development director, that would not have happened. So there are
yeah,
a lot, it'd be good to look at Zachariah, how we changed Zachariah's job description when he became
yeah,
planning director and economic development director. And when he moved to Synergy, that's when we felt like tourism is really our economic development, our main economic development driver, so that it made more sense to have economic development under the tourism rather than in the planning department. So that was the emphasis
yeah,
for moving it, is because really they are interconnected.
right. And so currently is economic development funded through general fund at all, or is it all grant and TRT? Do you guys know?
Maybe answer.
Well, I think right now it is being,
We have two revenue accounts in our Fund 16, which is economic development. Fund 16, as I think Chris talked about last week, is captures. And again, this was redone last spring. So we had to change it, we know that, but Fund 16 captures all economic development, and we have transit room taxes as part of the revenue contributions, which include the Rural County grant and expense reimbursements, reserve funds, and contributions from the fund balance. So there is
Okay.
potential for some general funds to go into economic development for sure.
prior to getting the diversification monies from the TRC. It was all from general fund.
Okay,
And it could easily come from general fund again, because there's rules that you guys know, but that I don't know all the rules to. But I mean, obviously, there's an appetite for community and economic development
Sure.
yes,
to be stimulated.
Yes.
Maybe, once again, maybe we don't have to have that responsibility supervise travel council anymore. Maybe that could possibly be a separate entity that has the skills that are economic development, just esoteric skills to economic development. And people who know a lot about visitor economy are not necessarily predisposed to being community and economic development folks. And I think sometimes, too personal of an example, we used to search for employees that could do all of the things that the people that started the company did. And I'm gonna bet that if Alex is running the front door and ordering the sushi and making a fabulous freestyle roll, it's a lot harder to find somebody with all of those skills. But if you find somebody who's actually quite good at certain aspects, yes, it's a critical mass that you have to generate a certain amount of revenue to cover all those expenses. But if we can find ways to find people with those special skills, I believe we stand to save a lot of money and make the community stronger. Just an idea.
So I think I definitely agree with, you know, what's easy for me is that we have a strong director over travel council, over the tourism, the DMO, and that's their focus, and a strong director over community, and economic development. And that those, I do think, so just when I saw Elaine go from, being tourism to having to do all of that, I do think it's a lot for a lot of, I don't know, energy pulling you in different ways, maybe for one person. So definitely that. Now, as far as what falls under each of those, I don't know. I don't know that I have super strong opinions about that, because they are all funded through TRT, and either way, it's gonna split the money, and I feel like it just depends on how hard that is to do, I guess.
Can we pay that salary for the economic development, community economic development person potentially out of TRT after 416 changed, or would that have to be funded differently?
I don't think we can.
Yeah, no,
I'm not swearing to it, but I'm pretty sure.
We're just-
I've asked Steve to look into it.
Yeah,
But,
so if
I
that's the
haven't done that.
case, is it hard then to have it, it's still not hard to have a budget over TRT then, so like if they had responsibilities. I don't know.
My job is not to interfere in the advisory board law, do whatever you want. I'm not- But countywide, I can't speak to the fact that everything is a balancing act.
Yeah,
So anytime something goes up, something must go down, it's all a balancing act. So how that shakes out is the result of, 4 months worth of budget work.
yeah.
There's a million different ways it can work out.
Yeah.
No, I'm not trying to be coy or
You're
evade
not
the
at all.
question.
No,
You're not at
and
all.
my
That's the
questions are
reality.
just, I wanna advise something that's realistic
Right.
and,
Sure.
and
Right.
makes the county
Financial
run
sense.
smoother
Sure.
and financial sense, that's all. So
And
that's
I-
why all my questions.
Again, but from an organization standpoint, anytime you start getting too stretched out, it becomes a little bit problematic. Typically, a
Yeah.
kind of a more of a pyramid shape is better, so I would keep that in mind. Again, it's your advisory board, I'm not here.
Is anybody on video? Come on, Brian. Your brains.
Thanks for that. For me, it just seems, and Mary kind of just said it herself, tourism is driving the economic development. I kind of agree with the point that I think that if we need to look at what the economic drivers are, clearly tourism, clearly film, active transportation and trails, responsible recreation. I love all that. And it's incredibly important for us to be able to protect what we have so it doesn't go away. But that needs to kind of be hand in hand with what we are. And the two combined seem to be too much. If you're a business and you're running a business, you're always concerned with where the money's coming in so you can pay everything else. And no offense against August, I think it was just the way that his job description was written. He was trying to balance the needs of everyone. And quite honestly, you can't put the cart in front of the horse. You got to let the horse out to do what it needs to do so that it helps pull everything else along. And whatever we decide to do, and whatever recommendation that we need to make, I think that's what we should do. I mean, I agree with Lacey. I think it's a little bit too much for one person. I am concerned about the drop that we're seeing in tax revenue and TRT, and I think that we do need to, hooey up the horses and circle the wagons and look at what's going on, and figure out a way to make it better before we get into this conflict of, well, let's underfund the film commission so we can give more to active trails and transportation, which is kind of what seems to happen sometimes. We need to keep Grand County healthy and keep stuff coming in. I understand that we need someone to keep their eye on what grants are available. But if that's the sole reason that we're doing or keeping that position, I mean, there's plenty of people we could, hire somebody out, an intern that could do that. work and just look for every available grant that's available. And then hire a grant writer to just do that at probably a fraction of the cost of, the economic development director's position. So that's my thoughts. Thanks.
I love it. Can I ask a question about something? Is it legal in government? I don't know if this is legit or legal, whoever knows. Can you even structure something so that the person who's successful at getting grants gets a bonus? Is that too free enterprise? I don't know.
Typically, yes.
Okay, I just had to ask. I'm like, why not incent people to make more
Without
money? I don't
a
know.
long explanation, the short answer is
No.
much no.
All right,
Can I make a comment?
please.
Just I want to make clear, right now, the active transportation and trails is a department.
And they don't, yeah.
Oh, it's its own
They're
department
their
right
own
now.
department, yes. Right now they are.
Okay.
But we work together because we fund that.
So directly under like Mallory and Quinn.
Yes.
Okay.
But there's funding all comes from TRT,
Yes,
TRCCA.
and also we
Unless
work
they-
together because we want to drive the same message to the visitors with responsible recreation.
Absolutely.
That's why we work together. Any responsible recreation message, we work together for advertising, for the trails, and even for the community. So, yeah.
Another nerdy thing to ask is, I like the pyramid idea, and if you're streaming revenue through community and economic development that's coming from TRT and going to the film commission, because that is a totally legit expense of TRT and TRCCA. It does, I want things to be as not messy, little as not mess. And so for streaming revenue through a source that's all coming from the same area, maybe the trails and responsible recreation, who are all funded through TRT, should go through Travel Council, and then community and economic development, it might get messy if film were over there, because that's a TRT,
Yes.
TRCCA, that's where we like. Shouldn't say like, but that's a totally legitimate source for those funds. In state law, when I say legitimate, I mean by state code. Okay. So, I mean, we can move things around based on what the recommendations are. Alex, do you have ideas about this?
Hey there, yeah. Yeah, thanks for the reference earlier. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around like what the community economic development director would do. And I agree with Brian, like what is this, what is the job description of this person, and how much resources do they really need? And what do they really need to do in a week besides searching out grants? It seems like the Tourism Council and Melissa, they have, and everything that's underneath of it can be its own thing. And I just don't know where the director would, like, does that really need to be someone, a full paid position, 40 hours a week, all year round? Can that be someone who is hired to like search out the grants that we need? And it seems to me that everything like the active transportation, all of that should just fall under the Tourism Council, because it's all funded with those, with the TRC and the CRT and the CA funds. So it all just seems to be, I guess I'm not really sure that any of these organizational charts are what I foresee. And a question for Melissa, do you have the organizational chart for what exists right now? And
Yes, I can pull
I
that.
haven't, well,
Yeah, but
it
this
doesn't-
one,
the one I have is not updated. It has people's names that don't seem right, but there's probably a better one online.
yeah, if you could share like what what are we working with right now? And
Thank
kind of, and how do the flow of funds work right now?
That's another tricky chart.
Page. Give me just a second and I can pull that.
Can I say something with what Alex was saying about, you know, it doesn't need to be a full-time person? What about Vista volunteers? That's actually where we got some of our people that ended up being full-time staff members. You know, they could be a Vista volunteer, and that's who goes and does. I mean, that's what they would do, is just look for grants for the economic development side. Just an idea.
Can you guys see that our chart?
Yeah, okay, looks great, yeah. Do you think could you possibly just zoom in to the, like, under commission administration?
Of course. So I'd say Mallory, Queen, and Alicia. Alicia is the commissioner coordinator.
Right. Okay. Okay. Okay, so Spanish Trail.
Basically, right now, what's under economic development is the film commission, special events, and all that already. They don't even have, oh, there's active trails and transportation. They're clear off on their own.
I think that's an error. I could be wrong, but I think that well, maybe it's better now, because I have one that has a little linked line and it
No,
doesn't.
you have the old one.
I have the old one, so it's been revised, but. Yeah, so this one is now just a
But
parallel.
it's
Okay.
not linked to anything.
No, no,
Right,
no.
the one I'm looking at, I printed an old org chart, sorry.
And this is in the county website.
Yeah. But under economic development is assistant marketing director, social media. Can you guys read all that? I think I
Yeah.
have a hard time reading it. Okay.
Can you make it bigger?
Let me see if I can
Film
save this
commissioner,
picture.
admin. A whole lot of responsibilities that, in my opinion, are pulling any rational human in a lot of different directions. And if we remove a layer of middle management,
Can you guys see better?
Yeah, that's better, thank you.
Oops, oops.
Okay.
So basically, we could leave everything under the travel council and just take the economic development specialist out.
Yeah, I was gonna
Also
ask, who is is there a specialist right now?
Yes, it's Kate.
It's who?
Kate.
No, she's the special events board.
Oh, especially economic. Yeah, yeah.
so our travel council specialist is Melissa Stocks.
But this economic development
But-
specialist.
Right now, that I believe that was Ben Alters. We had.
Yeah,
August
that
Brenner-
was Ben.
And they're both vacant positions from my understanding. Which gives the opportunity to restructure while they're vacant.
So
Okay.
How does everyone feel about putting everything under tourism, underneath the travel council? Or the tourism council, however you want to say it. And community economic development would be a whole different, that would be up to the county. Because TRT and TRCCA can't fund that.
That's my understanding.
That's my understanding also.
I'm on board
We
with that.
haven't heard back from Steve if that's something we can do, because Lyman said we could.
He said we could do what?
We could do what we did before.
We could fund the,
As long as it was done by June 30th.
No, he said that even with the changes, we should be able to continue doing economic development the way we were doing. And I've asked Steve to find out what his statement is true, and I haven't heard back from him.
I have different information than that,
He said that to
but
me.
that's a good
He said that
clarification.
to me more than once.
So,
That's not how I read it. That's not how I read it. I read it that TRT and TRCCA can't go to the economic development like what we were doing before.
Well, he told me, and I didn't think it was correct. That's why I asked Steve to make sure it was.
and we can
Before we
clarify
went.
that. That's why we're grateful to have legal advice.
Mhm.
So we do everything correctly. For me, Sharon, I think that you make a sound argument, but it gives the opportunity to still do something with economic development, because that seems to be a community priority, a community good, it's something, but structuring it differently so that it's a separate issue with separate, like Alex said, having separate responsibilities and duties and performance issues that are different from what was a cumbersome structure previously. Does that make sense?
so, also I want to mention that we have that consultant.
That's right. Okay, that was another bullet point.
And I don't know, but I think, this is my opinion. We need to have a plan, we need to have a strategy before we taking any decision. And that's why we pay 150K to these, the best consultants.
This is true.
Tell us at least what's our plan. Maybe we have a short plan, maybe we have a long plan. But first we need to have a plan.
So in our last meeting, we confirmed that there's $150,000 commitment that we cannot change back out of, nor would we want to, we are paying top dollar for phenomenal advice about what to do moving forward in our community for economic development and tourism, and what we want that to look like. Because we haven't, in the last 2 years, been able to come up with an explanation of what we wanted that to look like. So we made, I believe, a $50,000 commitment from travel and from economic diversification funds, because we had to hurry and spend that money before the 30th of June. So the 100,000 came from economic development to contribute towards that. And we are locked into that and moving forward. So structuring what we want our Moab economy to look like will be largely what we are. That's actually a little bit, even though we're contributing, I think we're getting a little bit out of our department, because that's kind of the Economic Development Board. And they're incredibly capable people and they can help with that. But it is also a contribution because we want to know how that feeds into the local community tourism also. That is my understanding, but that piece is coming. So rather than pay a person to do that, we're paying a whole committee to come up with that data and intel for us. And that might possibly even be able to be directed by a different source. I'm not throwing Quinn under the table.
So
Just kidding.
my question, for Melissa is if all of the things were under this tourism council, to me, that seems like a lot for one person, considering, I mean, I'm guessing then maybe that this active transportation and trails would still kind of have its own
If you ask me that question, I
But-
think, active transportation kind of still their own department. I will give this example, like, for example, planning and zoning and economic development, they work together. When we want to develop, I don't know, a hotel, they need to work together with planning and zoning. But it doesn't need to be the same
Building.
head. So I think same with active transportation, maybe Mali is still being her own boss. And just having a communication, direct communication with economic development, also with travel council.
The
That's
funding all
my-
comes from tourism.
I think,
It seems like a natural flow.
Yes, I think especially event coordinator must to be under tourism, because we need to promote those events. We need to promote those events. Film commission, I think we need to promote film, but also I have something on my mind, like maybe film, it's economic diversification. So they can apply for grants at the state level without being in tourism. And film is economic diversification because these reasons. Yeah, they bring people, but they don't bring visitors. What they work with a community. They, when they have those, how you say, Biga, like when they come, when they are doing the scouting, they come to do the scouting, Biga connect with the community, say, hey, we're gonna do this, people are coming. So it's more like community involving than visitors involved. So that's why I think, film need to have their own place.
And film can still be funded, obviously, legally by statute in Title 17, but what we're allowed to contribute money towards is right there, film production. It's number C, item 2. So that can still be funded that way legally.
Yes. So that's my opinion, but yeah.
Rebecca, we haven't heard from you.
What did I do?
Oh, good.
I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around everything too. But I agree with Lacey. Like, I feel like that's a lot of jobs for one person to be over.
So can we make it big? Okay.
And can I just say one more thing, just about film? The last couple of years, film has gotten shuffled from one place to another and I mean, if you guys remember, the first budget we looked at didn't even have money going to film. And I don't want to see that happen. We cannot lose the film commission. We need that. If anything, we could, I mean, maybe it could, same as like the active trails and transportation, maybe it could be its own grouping under its own department under the commissioners or underneath the commission administration. You know, like, so we would have the tourism council, the film, and then the active transportation or the active transportation. And then responsible recreation could be under active transportation, but that way it's not all under tourism, but it can still all be funded with TRT and TRCCA.
And I could be wrong, and I don't want to be a naysayer because I don't have the intel on this. But from my experience, the commission administration is pretty stretched. If we keep giving them more responsibility, my hope is that we can structure so that they're, you know, reporting to those people, but that they're not. I really don't want to throw Quinn or Mallory more stuff on them. So if we can manage these things, like, you know, within Alex's idea of we need to make sure that economic development person has very specific and broad enough responsibilities that we're not just paying somebody to go have lunch to try to network. We gotta show productivity. What are you bringing? Mining? That's a terrible word. I know we don't want that. Are we bringing industry, light industry? What are we bringing to diversify our economy that the community has an appetite for? And maybe make a little, just re-describe what the job responsibility is. But I prefer to not make Quinn and Mallory shoulder more, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I would also agree with what, Sharon just said, and Melissa as well. I almost feel like, if OSTA is its own thing, and if the library is its own thing, and I think for sure that the film commission should be its own thing. And if you're going to set up department heads and division line leaders that are going to be responsible for their area, I think it's a much more effective and cost-effective way than trying to have one person overseeing all this stuff. I mean, I think that we've all kind of seen, what August struggled with. That's a lot to juggle. And, I almost think that, specialization is the key. That's why they're the masters of their domain. And we need to kind of trust them to do what they do. And not shackle them almost sometimes in competing stuff, right? It's what it felt like a lot of the times as well. So just my 2 cents.
Like it. Well, this is our opportunity to come up with advice and recommendation to possibly do things. I don't believe in doing things different. I believe in making things better, and we have to be able to justify how it's an improvement. Fiscal, saving money, having more opportunity to put limited resources towards things that the community values, I think are critical. But we have to decide as a group if there's an appetite. Jenny said she's happy to write a letter of recommendation for us and structure it based on our recommendation if we want to advise the commission what we think is the right way to use these resources. It doesn't mean they have to listen to us. We've been told that repeatedly. We understand, but we're a volunteer board and we're putting in our time, energy, effort, and heart to try to make this community more effective. And if we can come up with a recommendation, or if there's a motion to, for 1, 2, 3, or a different option, I say let's lay it out there and decide where we want to go, if anywhere.
Is there anything saying we can't come up with a couple different options and then just put them in, in like, these are our top 2 or 3 options that we think would work well? I mean, is there anything saying we have to come up with just one? Because I'm seeing there's, several different, I like how you have 3 options here. I would change. I mean, I don't want to see film commission get shoved underneath something that's not going to be really fully funded. And the community economic development director, now that we've been talking, might end up being a part-time position or just, something like that. And then is that film commission going to get lost under there again?
If there's an appetite for it, we could also put in the letter to say we believe that the film commission should be well funded. I mean, these are just recommendations, and the commission will do what they see fit for our community. They're the ones elected to do that. But I don't think there's anything that would keep us from making a strong recommendation with it. We think that that's of value to our community.
Can I just say one other thing? I can't speak on behalf of the foundation. But they didn't accept the county proposal. And some of the backstory that was involved with that was fear that, one, the trial period wasn't long enough, and two, if it happened, there was some talk behind the scenes that the TRT funding would be cut altogether once it became part of this public-private partnership, and it would be 100% left to the foundation to do that. And that was never the intent of the original offer. It was always supposed to be this kind of public-private partnership thing. So that's why ultimately it didn't go to the Red Cliffs Foundation. And I agree with Sharon 100% that, as a recommendation, this is an opportunity. Literally almost every single council member agreed that the film commission needs to be better funded, and that there needs to be more resources put behind it. With the vacancies that have come up and the ability to shuffle the board a little bit, I think it makes 100% sense to move. If you just look at option one, there's the tourism council. It's responsible for driving tourism. Trails and recreation gets moved up to its line, and then film gets moved up to its line. Special events, I could go any way on that. I think it's kind of driven by the tourism council to a large degree, so it maybe stays under the tourism council. But if I was to create my own option, I guess I am option 4 now. That's what I would recommend.
No, please, go. We're just like, this is
Move
just
this along.
brainstorming, right?
Move this along.
Okay, so I agree wholeheartedly that all of these things that are funded by a TRT, it makes sense that they're in a place together. But I do want to speak up a little bit for this community economic development, whether it's part-time or not. I do think that we need an emphasis on economic development, even just to support and continue the economy we have. And that is working on housing issues and childcare issues and all of these things that are making it hard to attract a workforce and to keep a community. So as far as, and I don't know if it can be funded by TRT or not, but I do think it's important, and I don't think that it's necessarily something, I get that maybe it's tourism responsibilities might be cut down, but I just want to speak up for, I think it's a very important position. And if there is a way for, at least in the businesses that I've talked to, if there is a way to actually support some of those main issues that are, kind of impeding this growth of workforce, that's not something that they're opposed to helping with if it works with TRT and whatnot, but I just would hate to see it get cut off. And so that's just in those ways of conversation. I think that we need to make sure that we remember there's a lot of things that aren't necessarily listed here because they aren't TRT funded that are important to that position.
And Alex, maybe that, like, putting things like that in the scope of the recommendation that we hypothetically could do is putting those types of responsibilities with the economic, and because we've sort of shuffled the name too, and obviously these are just recommendations, but calling it not just economic development, but community and economic development, because what good, your economy is based on your community. Every community decides what they want their community to look like, and hopefully contributes towards that. And that might be, I'm guessing that what we could do is make a recommendation to draft a letter that we could revisit. Not that I want to have death by meeting, but we've brought out a lot of ideas that seem provocative, that maybe we can make a recommendation to the commission. But I don't know the right way to get it out there to make sure everybody's in agreement. Because as Mary said, we have to have a letter before we can recommend sending the letter. So it looks like we have a little bit of work to get some stuff on paper and maybe with different organizational options also. Help me here, guys,
Where can I jump in?
please.
So I think at this point you have really two options, that you could instruct someone to write a letter synthesizing the gist of this meeting. I think that's difficult. I think that doesn't work out very well.
Okay.
In the end. I think the best thing to do would be to assign someone the role of crafting a letter that doesn't say this, and then look at the actual letter that you would support the recommendation to the commission at a later meeting. So that you have, everyone would have a chance to see the letter before the meeting, they would have a chance to read it. They could offer some feedback if that was relevant, if not, but I think you've got a lot of good points here. They just need to be put into a letter. And I think it, while you could ask somebody to draft that and get ready to send it, I think you're better off actually crafting the letter and having that ready at the next meeting and then approving that for forwarding to the commission.
And passing, sending it out for feedback prior to the meeting.
Did everybody hear that? Because I think I'm gonna have a hard time repeating that eloquently.
Here, Mary's or Quinn?
Oh,
I think they're saying the same thing, that Quinn is saying, rather than keep having death by meeting, that maybe we propose to have Jenny draft a letter based on what we've said in this meeting, distribute it to each of you, and then present that letter to the commission.
No.
So at your next
No,
meeting, you would have the
Oh,
final. completed
oh,
letter.
sorry.
So she will draft a letter and she will share with all the board. And then you guys gonna do a feedback and the next Travel Council Advisory Board. We decide if this is the right letter that we want to show to the agenda for the next commissioner meeting.
Right.
Queen, I have a question. Can they decide in an email what letter they want to send instead
No,
of waiting
formal
for the
decisions have to be made
public?
in a public meeting.
Okay.
So.
So we
you
need
know,
to-
I would argue that
Mhm.
if Jenny were to craft a letter and send that out, and then people were to respond to Jenny individually with their feedback, that's allowed.
Yeah.
If everybody starts talking about it all on the same email, that's not allowed.
Okay.
That's a real discussion that needs to take place in a
Okay.
public meeting.
I get it.
And so if people send Jenny feedback individually
Mhm.
to her on the letter, that's generally allowed. Then Jenny would present the letter as part of her formal agenda at the next travel council meeting, and everybody would go like, yes, this is the letter we want to forward to the county commission.
And I'll have to look and see when the next travel council meeting is. I don't want to get the cart before the horse, but time is sort of the essence because things are rather fluid right now and we don't want to have some resource put towards interviewing people if the commission would ultimately decide on
well,
a
the
possible
commission isn't
restructure.
Having another meeting until for 3 weeks.
3 weeks, okay,
Because
so,
of the way the calendar is.
okay.
Sky, do you know when we're having the next Travel Council?
Yeah, it is. So one thing, that is one thing I was gonna ask is, can we, like, is there somewhere I can pull up the job description and then just read it?
Sure.
So we already know what is
The job
out there
description
for
for,
the economic development.
You want me to
director.
pull it right now?
Yeah, well, that'd be-
sure,
that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too.
Sorry,
So,
so we do a lot of times, because you can't have the whole board commenting on the letter. But oftentimes you want more than just one person's input, is we have like a subcommittee, let's say it might be Kevin, myself and Trish. That work on something.
Right.
And then we bring it, because that's
Oh, yeah.
okay. Because then you're getting more than one person's ideas, and then you take it to board, and then it's probably tweaked again. But still, you get a little closer to what you want,
so,
Yeah, you want
Coach-
to avoid a quorum discussion.
just not a forum
okay,
discussion.
so 3 is acceptable, 4 is not.
Because you're seven, right? You're seven.
You're seven member board
So
with
you
five,
have three.
five is a majority. 4 is a majority.
Four.
So if you have 4 people making a decision over email, that's against the law.
That's bad. So if there were 2 or 3 people that wanted to get together, draft a letter, that's acceptable.
And
Then-
usually the easiest thing to do, just. from
Please,
experience,
please, Coach.
Is that someone take the lead, write the letter, send it to the 2 other people. Have them look at it, start, editing it, modifying it, getting it, tweaking it, till where the 3 of you say, hey, this is a good letter. Then bring that letter to the board.
Okay. Okay.
Then it saves time.
Does anybody have an opposition to that idea? of having Jenny draft a letter and having up to 2 other people contribute on that letter, bringing it to the next as an agenda item to the next meeting, so we can determine if that is palatable or interesting or desirable or whatever.
No objection.
No objection to that? Anybody have any objection to that?
No.
Okay, I'm liking that. I'm not sure where to go next, but I want to look at this economic development director posting because this is active on the county website, to my understanding.
And your next meeting is September 12th.
Our next meeting is September 12th. That's a month.
Which would be the same day as your commission meeting, is that right? Are you second and fourth? Or are you first and third?
First and third.
Oh, okay.
Is it before their meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we would miss their meeting because that's in 3 weeks. So what about,
You could get it organized and have a quick one agenda meeting where people.
Another.
Look
we
at
could
the
do
meeting and
another
we could
special
vote
meeting
on
and
it.
one agenda item. Did everybody hear what Mary said?
And usually those can be very short and you don't have to, have. Yeah.
We could propose to have Jenny draft a letter with the help of up to 2 people, have another special 1-item meeting that won't take your whole day. Decide whether or not, we want to vote to forward that to the commission because the commission meeting is on September 5th. Is that right? September 5th is the next one. And to be courteous to the county, we don't want to tie them up with our ideas. We want to help them with our ideas. So. Does anybody want to have this read out loud or read it out loud, the job description? Lacy.
Can you just scroll it down a little bit so we can see what's under? There we go. Yeah, right about there.
Prepare, maintain, update, implement economic elements. Tell us when you want us to scroll. Do you want us to scroll a little bit?
Sure.
There, that shows you a little bit more.
Okay.
There. We're done.
Yeah, keep going.
More, a little bit, just to get staffing and personnel management at the top. There you go. I don't know if anybody else has noticed in the minimum qualifications that the qualifications are strongly economic and marketing, but very little tourism.
The reason that the part of the travel council is to support the tourist industry through promotion and sales, marketing.
Well,
because that is our main driver.
right, but having economic development be over tourism seems superfluous to me. Seems like they're separate but equal. But one has funding and one doesn't. If anybody else wants it scrolled, or just say, hey,
I think the other things are more important.
yeah,
Yeah, it's more like ability and blah, blah, blah.
yeah. And if anybody wants, we can always send out an email with some of these links, but sometimes you send out an email and you don't have time to read it, so.
You could
Um,
just go on to the.
to the
county
website.
The county
and
website
it's on-
has
it's
all this
posted
too,
there for
yeah.
anybody that wants to apply.
I think, should we create a option 4?
I think we need to make a motion. My guess is, and help me on this one, because this is a little beyond me, but I think we need to make a motion to recommend Jenny and a subcommittee and whomever wants to be, volunteer for that, to craft a letter to put forward so that we can look at that and possibly an agenda 4 in a special meeting prior to the next county commission meeting. Is that a legitimate motion to be made? Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I think, first we need to decide what option we want to share to the commissioners, because I think it would be value to give some options to the commissioners instead of just giving this is the option. I think it would be better if commissioners understand the situation of the organization.
I think, because this is being recorded, correct? So
Yeah.
Jenny will be able to hear all of our recommendations. Jenny and the subcommittee can put those together. I think it's pretty clear what we're kind of leaning towards, and we could do a couple different options that look like that. And I don't think we need to decide on an option right now. I don't think we need to, figure out the exact organizational chart that we want to use. I think what Lori's saying, we just need I'm assuming we need a motion to have Jenny and a subcommittee draft a letter to the commission stating our preferred options for organizational chart. Is that correct?
I don't know if it needs to be done by formal motion. I mean, in a commission meeting, the commissioner simply instructs staff to
Right.
Oh, I love that.
craft this.
We don't necessarily have to make a motion. We can just, is anybody interested in participating in crafting any of this with Jenny?
I can help Jenny with it. I mean, I'll let her take the lead and I will help.
I'm happy to help.
Okay.
I'm a better editor than I am a writer, so
Yes, me too.
3? Is that
can
right?
be 3 of us or
Is it just as long as we don't have a quorum? Is that what it is?
Yes, sorry, did I not say that loud enough?
Can't have
As long as
4.
it's not a quorum.
it can be 3, not 4. And if somebody else prefers, I'm just trying to be, like I said, somebody else prefers to do it. I feel like all my ideas are out on the table, so
And yeah,
um,
we can duke it out, Lori.
I love it. I love it.
I'm happy to help if need be.
I love it. Yeah. So what do I do now to not make everybody miss more work? Close the meeting? Help me with the
Unless
process.
there's any objections, we'll adjourn.
Is there anybody who'd like to say anything else before we adjourn the meeting? Because apparently we don't have to make a motion to make that happen. We're gonna have a subcommittee of Jenny, Sharon, and Lori draft a letter and prepare it. And we will get that ready and put on a calendar and ask for Melissa's help in scheduling a special meeting so everyone can be notified in advance of what we're looking at, so that if there's input, we can do that at the next special meeting.
I'll say one more thing.
Please.
From an administrative standpoint and from a county standpoint, I think that oftentimes we do hear people say things, and Laura, you said this earlier, that advisory boards are simply that, they're just advisory, they make recommendations to the commission. But I think it's important to note that even in that role, that information that is passed on to the commission, whether it's adopted or not, often does trickle down in one form or another. And so the information provided by the advisory board is invaluable, and we very much appreciate it.
That makes me feel
Because
better.
even if the commission decides to go a different direction, a lot of times, if it's not, if you submit a letter and they don't adopt the entire letter, maybe they'll adopt a part of it or a line of it, or take this idea and incorporate that. So I think that these types of advisory boards are essential to the function of local government, and we very much appreciate the input you guys have.
Thanks, Gwen.
We always take it very seriously.
Love it.
Uh,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess just a quick summary of what would the goal of the letter be in general, in your opinion, or in anyone's opinion. Just like, it seems to me that we just need to make sure that the film commissioner is funded, and we are changing the organizational chart to change the funding, or just make sure that the positions are funded correctly.
And streamline the organization so that we don't have so many middle managers
Mhm.
using resources that can be used for community priorities, because the structure seems to it seems to be time to maybe re-examine that.
Mhm.
And if we recommend it, maybe that's just a nudge. Maybe all the commissioners have already discussed all this and we're just late to the game. But
Mhm.
that would be my recommendation, to recommend a restructure that's a little bit more efficient.
And I'll just say, for my purposes, my main goal would be that, that while tourism is definitely like under economic development, it is the majority of what we have, and so that it gets the focus that it deserves, I guess. And so splitting those positions seems pretty important to me.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Any last minute thoughts? With that, do we adjourn? Is that the right word? We adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much for being here. I know it's a huge sacrifice to tear away from what your responsibilities of your day are. And I personally really appreciate everybody's input and contribution, because it makes me feel like this community is richer.
And I will share this Word document with everybody so they have like knowledge of what we are talking about between the option 1, option 2, and option 3. And I'm gonna also send a link of the organization chart for the county and the job description of economic development director.
Super helpful.
Hmm.
Awesome. Okay, thanks all.
Yeah,
Have a good day.
thanks everyone.
Yes, bye.
Have a great day, everybody.
You too.